wrong, this is obscene, it is foul, and I'm not going to stand for it.
Right on. So Justin, I mean, I wanted to kind of ask you as to what started this movement for you. I mean, how many years has this been running, and what was that initial thing that made you realize, you know what, human trafficking is an issue that needs to be addressed, and started your thought process on how to get involved?
Well, I've been working on the film, both making it and showing it, for a little over 3 years. I understood or came to the issue about 5 years ago, and I discovered it just like most people do. You just kind of read about it in a magazine or you see something on the news. For me, it was a magazine, and it kind of stayed in that space of, oh, okay, that's another really terrible thing about the world. I have no idea how I can connect with that. It wasn't until a few months later that I started traveling as a musician through Eastern Europe and Russia and got to meet girls who were being given the same ploys, the same offers that I was reading about in that magazine. They sounded exactly the same, and realizing, you know, these are smart university age girls that just want opportunities for themselves like any university student anywhere in the world, and yet their desire to get to the West was so strong that they were not willing to really take a look at the danger of these opportunities that were being given to them to quote-unquote work in the West. And I think it was both me coming back, learning about the issue, trying to get a sense of how I could be helpful, and kind of being amazed, really, that so few people are working on it. Those that are working really, really hard and are really underfunded. But I felt like, you know, if it's the fastest growing crime in the planet, which it is, if people are worth less today than they were 200 years ago, as a matter of fact, it's about, you know, the equivalent of buying a slave in the States 180 years ago was about the equivalent of buying a really nice luxury automobile. Today, you can buy that same value of commodity for about $300. So when those kind of stats are hitting us, and you're realizing the response is so quiet, passionate but quiet, for me it was about how do I take my world and inject it into what should be a very large movement.
Just so we get an idea on how big this problem is, how many, is this thousands of people, millions of people? What kind of numbers are we looking at with this growing crime?
It's estimated that there's about 27 million people in forced labor, slavery around the world today. And that falls into several different sectors, but mostly inside of sexual slavery and labor slavery. And the ages range, you know, it's basically about 80% of those are women and children. So the ages are ranging anywhere from 3 years old all the way up to adult age. We're talking about it's generating profits in essence between 32 and 36 billion dollars a year. So that's a massive amount of money. It's already surpassed profitability of the arms trade. So we're talking about the second largest illicit trade in the world. So it's massive. The thing that we need to understand about it mostly is that this is, yes, we call it human trafficking, but really the perfect word for it is slavery. And slavery is defined by being forced to work without any pay, under the threat of violence, with your economic opportunities taken away, and you're unable to walk away. That's slavery. If you fit inside that category, so this isn't sweatshops, this isn't not being paid well, this isn't prostitution for a low wage, this is people being forced to work. There are 27 million people at least in that condition today.
Give me just one example. You said these are university level women often that get tricked. What is that? Maybe one way, one typical tactic they would use to trick a woman into it.
Yeah, I mean that certainly isn't the majority of the issue, but you know, anywhere there is where there aren't opportunities to grow economically, which is a nice word for systemic poverty. Anywhere that's the case, and that can happen in the UK, in the US, in Cambodia, in Bulgaria. I mean, anywhere that's happening, that is a situation that is rife for exploitation and human trafficking. So that is as prevalent as a runaway in Iowa or a young girl living in a village in Cambodia. It's the same type of exploitation. So keep in mind that we've have information of former pimps in the States that will troll malls looking for girls to be able to create a relationship with and then draw them into their trade. And the way that here's an opportunity to understand exploitation. Here's the way one former pimp was able to describe whether or not he was going to be able to trick a girl into prostitution. He would go up to them and say, "Gosh, you look really pretty." And if she would look him straight in the eye and say thank you, he'd keep going.
Oh, really? So you look for the weakness.
Yeah. It's any type of weakness you can find.
If anyone sees this movie and they're compelled to help, what is the main way you want people to become involved with this cause? What's the most helpful thing any regular person can help out?
I think it's to understand that we need all of who you are, not just your money. So we definitely need people to be funding frontline projects that have high impact and low cost. And we provide those on callandresponse.com. Those aren't easy to find, but we've spent a long time trying to find projects that are operating on all points of the issue that have high impact, low cost. So money's, it's a part of it, but it is certainly not all of it. What we want is for people to start to work this issue into their lifestyle. Not just see it as something that happens over there or their lives not connected with it. The reality is we are all connected to slavery by the clothes we wear and the food we eat, the phones we talk on. And so understanding that we're unwillfully complicit, that we're at the end of a supply chain is extremely important. And I have to believe that part of the issue is where you have the most leverage around forced labor. And so our website's built tools, and we have an iPhone app coming out where you can actually use your discretionary time to be able to strategically work with companies to begin to suss out the supply chains. Not an easy task. Absolutely not an easy task. But guess what? As consumers, we absolutely are in the driver's seat on this. So if we say it matters, if it becomes a consumer choice, things happen. That's the great thing, if there is a great thing about this potential movement, is all the answers are there. And the ones that aren't there just require a little bit of creativity and commitment to get to them. We actually can end this type of egregious slavery in our lifetime.
I think the last thing I was curious about when I started looking into what you're about, this I'm sure has changed your life in a lot of ways. At the end of when your life is said and done and people look back on you personally, what do you want to be remembered for? What was your life? What was that main thing that you hope it improved or that it changed?
I don't really often think about my personal legacy. I would be really okay if no one remembered who I was. But if I was to be able to look on my own life, and I was the only one to identify my own life, and knew that I was able to help inspire people to find their own response and to connect and to actually address their own poverty of purpose and actually turn that into fighting poverty of a different type around the world and exploitation. To me, if I could connect those dots for the haves and the have-nots, that would be, I'd like that. Yeah. Thank you.
Never forget, justice is what love looks like in public.